Hello and welcome to Blow Up Your Content, a MindShuffle lunchtime web workshop. My name is Jessica Fetterman. I am the CEO and Chief Strategic Storyteller for MindShuffle. We are a small strategic storytelling company based out of Yardley, which is in Bucks County, Pennsylvania. We work primarily with small and medium-sized businesses to help those business owners to discover their brands and share their stories strategically with the world. So we are so excited that you're here today to learn about how to blow up your content. And today, we're going to talk about having a content idea and blowing it up, exploding it into multiple pieces so it can be shared across multiple channels, both digital and traditional. And at the end, we'll share some useful tips with you so that you can go back right away and start sharing your content. And at the very end, I do have a free offer that I'm excited to share with you that hopefully will help you get started on your content creation journey. So let's get started. When you want to create content to share with your audience, you need to start with an idea. You want to have an idea that is interesting, intriguing for your audience so that they're going to want to learn more about that topic and they're going to want to hear from you about it. As an example today, we're going to use a script that I wrote for my weekly Shuffle Up videos. These are explainer videos that I create to share with my email list. So that folks can get quick tidbits of marketing information, marketing trends, marketing how-tos, so that they can use them right away. So these tend to be about a 3-minute long video, and I write a script out before I record it. But I do tend to like to use these scripts for more than just video production. So I will explain to you a little bit more in just a minute about how I do that. But first, you have to start with an idea. So today's example, I thought it was appropriate. We're going to use a Shuffle Up script about content marketing. So we have our idea. We've written it out. And the second step, once you've had your idea, is to really write out information about that, really flesh out the concepts that you want to highlight for your audience. You want to include substance and detail because it'll make it easier for you to create additional content on this topic later on. All the information you need will be there. It'll save you time and effort, and it just makes the process go a lot more smoothly. So once you have your idea on a topic you want to cover, you're going to outline it in detail. And after you've done that, you're going to organize it. You're going to break that information that you've written down into sections or chapters so that it's a little easier for you, really, to determine which additional content you might want to create from the information that you've written here. I do want to stress that when you're creating this outline, though I am asking you to include substance and detail, you don't necessarily need to make this a 50-page report. Truthfully, the screenshot that I showed you before, this script was 1 page long. And from it, I could create probably, on a good day, I could probably create easily 5 pieces of content pretty quickly from this one script. So I'll explain to you again in a minute how we can go about doing that. But again, it doesn't have to be a ton of information, just enough so that you can really educate your audience on what you're trying to tell them about. It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be grammatically correct. Punctuation and capitalization don't need to be ideal right now. You'll polish those things up later as you create your sort of official content strategy. Right now, your focus is getting all the information out on paper so that you have all the information and tools that you need on that paper to break it into pieces, into chapters, as I've done, and I'm going to show you in a minute a little bit closer how I did that. And that way, from there, you can create additional pieces of content because this one article, one outline that you're creating is your foundation for more content on that topic. So what I've done here, you can see again the screenshot of the script that I created. and because it's kind of hard to read, I have blown up my quote-unquote chapters so that you can get a sense of how I've organized my copy here, so that I was then able to explode it into future bits and pieces of information to share. So this is a one-page script, and I read it verbatim as I recorded the video that I created for my MindShuffle Shuffle Up. However, what you can see also is that there are some bold sub-headlines on this script. And for me, this is how I'm able to organize the highlights, the primary themes of this content that I may want to utilize for additional pieces later on. So I call those chapters, those sub-headline sections. So those chapters are: what is content marketing? How do I perform content marketing? And how does content marketing help my business? These are 3 questions that I frequently hear from my customers when I start to talk to them about content marketing. For you, you may want to consider taking a more journalistic approach. That is to say, you may want to answer some of those basic questions, because what those do is get into your customers' minds and helps you to provide the detail that they want. Those questions are: who, what, where, when, why, and how. So we've got a what question. What is content marketing? We've got 2 different how questions here. How do I perform content marketing, and how does content marketing help my business? You may also want to use, for example, why does content marketing help my marketing efforts? And so on and so forth. Where do I utilize content marketing? And when would I utilize content marketing? So these are all questions that your audience, or my audience in this case, might want to know about. And they're very simple questions to ask, and it will really guide you through the content creation and that outlining process. Excuse me. So those are questions that I would suggest starting with. And of course, as you write, you'll probably come up with more information and more detail that you can add to your outline. But it's a really great starting point. So you've created your outline, you've broken it up into chapters, and now you need to choose which forms your content will take. So you're considering your options. Will your content be written? Will it be visual? Or will it be audio? This is by no means an exhaustive list of channel options or types of format options that you can take. However, there are some good ones here. So for example, for written content, you might consider writing a blog post. The full text of your outline with a little bit of editing and revision may be a perfect blog post for your website. You might consider using it as an article for a local newspaper or a newsletter for your Chamber of Commerce. You might consider using this information to develop a white paper or a case study, a success story about your business and your product and services. Or you might take this information and create a press release for this content that you can send to the newspapers, to the TV stations, to the news radio stations, and let them know that you have important information to share with their audiences. You might take this information and turn it into visual content. For example, a video like my Shuffle Up videos. You can view a bunch of them on my website, mindshufflemarketing.com. You could create an infographic, which we'll talk about what those are in a minute. Those are a very popular way of sharing information quickly and visually in an interesting way. Or you could create, for example, a slideshow of this information and post it on SlideShare, LinkedIn, any number of places. Third, you could create audio content. Audio content could be something like a speaking event where you are personally there to present the information. It could be a webinar like this one, or it could be a podcast. The only thing with a podcast, I would recommend that you are committing to a regularly occurring podcast schedule, because once you start gaining an audience, they're going to be really looking for those podcasts to show up on their queue. I will also tell you that you've written this outline, you've got all this great content that you've created on your outline, you've broken it into chapters, and now you're considering how you're going to share this information. Your content outline may require some additional tweaking, some adjustment. You may use all of the information you wrote or some of the information you wrote, but at least you have it all there in front of you to pick and choose. And as you're changing your formats, especially from written to visual or audio, or you're changing to a different written format. So as opposed to being a blog post, you might be turning it into a case study or a press release, for example. The formatting will change, which means you might need to make some adjustments to how you wrote this, the layout in which it is created or conveyed to the readers. Just keep in mind that that outline is a foundation, but you don't necessarily want to or have to, it depends on the situation, change how it looks or how it reads. That is really something that's taken on a case-by-case basis, depending on the type of medium that you're using, whether it's written, visual, or audio, and the type of goals that you have set for that particular content. We spoke a little bit about visual types of content, and one of those visual types of content is something called an infographic. It's an informational graphic. It is becoming more and more popular to use, especially in the social media sphere, but it can be usable across a bunch of different channels. This is an example of a piece of an infographic that we did for a customer of ours who is an IT managed services company. He wanted to share with his audience about how expensive it is when your IT network goes down. The cost of lost productivity and employee labor that you're paying for, but it isn't being used because your technology isn't working. And so in addition to creating a blog post about this particular topic, we created this infographic. And what you can see is that it breaks down the statistics and the information in bite-sized pieces. My customer sent me an email with a few pieces of information. It was a very basic outline, and we were able to chop it up into different sections and create an infographic out of it. And so we've created this infographic again that became a blog post, it became a social media post, it became an infographic that can also be used in print and repurposed for a variety of different things on a print level. And so this is information that, generally speaking, is not going to change a whole lot. So with just a little bit of information, we were able to create 4 or 5 pieces that he could use across different channels and share with the different audiences that follow him on those channels. And those channels are where you share your content. And that's your next step in exploding your content. You need to decide, now that you've created this outstanding information, you need to decide where you're going to share it with your audience. There are a few places you can share your information. You can share this content online, you can share it in print, or you can share it in person. And so you can share online on your website. You might make it a piece of static information, that is information that is in the main portion of your website. You could also make it a blog post, as we've discussed, which is generally a different section on your website. You could share it on social media. You could share it on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Google+, Snapchat. There's all kinds of places you can share on social media in different ways. You can also share an email blast of this content with an audience of people who have opted in through email to receive messages from you. Now, with social media and email, I would highly, highly recommend that you not necessarily post the entire text of the content that you're looking to share. What I would recommend is that you share a brief summary or a few sentences of this piece of content that then has a link at the very end of that synopsis or those couple of sentences where people can follow that link to your website where they can read the full text. Not only is that just a best practice where people's inboxes aren't flooded with a ton of information. But it's also a best practice because what it does is drive your audience, whether they're existing audience members or new audience members, it drives them right to your website, which is wonderful because once they've read your content, they may stay on your website and explore more about you, your business, products and services that you offer, and hopefully start to establish a relationship where they start to recognize your expertise and start to trust your knowledge. And when time comes for them to do business, they're going to come to you. In print, you can share this content in newspapers, whether it's as a print advertisement or an article that you've written, or you could share it in promotional materials, whether that's sort of an overall company promotional item, such as a brochure or a rack card, or you might share it as in the form of, say, a flyer or a printed white paper or case study that you share at special events, expos, networking events, promotional materials that not only showcase what you know, but promote your business. So if you do print out those kinds of things, make sure your logo's on there, make sure your contact information is on there because you're providing them with valuable information. And again, they're going to recognize that you know your stuff. They're going to want to call you when it's time for a transaction to take place. Finally, you might share your information in person, whether it's a speaking event or a webinar or for a sales presentation. Being able to share valuable information with your customers, the stuff that you've already created will enhance what you're trying to share with them in person. Once you've sort of thought through how you want to share your information, your content that you've worked so very hard to create, you need to create a plan. If you don't have a plan, it's likely you're not going to implement all of it, that you might miss something. So this is a sample of, or an example of how I might share the different bits and pieces of content that I've created from my one MindShuffle Shuffle Up script. For example, from that script, I might create a written blog post and enhance that blog post with an infographic that I've created. And I'll place that on my website in my blog. I might also create an email blast for my audience, for the people who have opted in to receive emails from me. And I'll create a small summary of the content that I've developed and follow that with a link that will direct people to the full text of that information on my website. I might consider publishing a LinkedIn article. LinkedIn articles are a fantastic way to gather additional visibility for your business. It's a little bit more or a lot more readily available to people outside of your sphere, outside of your circle of connections on LinkedIn. And it stays around a lot longer than an update, a status update on LinkedIn. LinkedIn articles allow you to publish information of value and interest to your audience. Not only do your connections see it, but if there are certain keywords that you've incorporated into your article, people outside of your connections, if they're also viewing articles with similar keywords, that your article might actually show up as something they'd be interested in reading also. What I would recommend is that you do something similar to emails and social media. As I've said before, create a synopsis. Create a couple of sentences that talk about what your article is about. Maybe you include the infographic in your LinkedIn article, and then provide a link at the end of that article that directs people again to your website where they can read the full content of the article that you've written. Again, if you're directing people to your website, you're directing them to information not only that's valuable to them, but where they can learn more about you. Your website is your home on the internet, and that's the best place that you can send your audience to learn more about you. You might also consider posting your infographic and a link to the full content text on your website on Twitter. Now, a lot of people shy away from Twitter because Twitter is a very different animal from LinkedIn and Facebook. However, it is a fantastic content sharing engine. It's people eat it up. And though it's intimidating, I understand. I really think that if you are willing, give Twitter a shot. I think you'll see an amazing opportunity to share your content with people who are otherwise never going to see it, because there are fewer barriers on Twitter to connect with you and see your information. One really important tip is that if you're going to be on Twitter, you need to hashtag. If you're not familiar with how to hashtag, I have done a previous webinar on hashtagging that you can view on my channel, on my MindShuffle channel, and it's definitely a great way to be able to capture the attention of people who are outside of your sphere. And finally, you might consider sharing the content on a webinar or in-person presentation to customers or to professional groups. For example, this content marketing blow up your content is an offshoot of that script that I wrote way back when. And now I'm presenting a webinar on it. So this is an example of a channel plan so that you can remember where you're going to share your content and how. So not only where am I sharing it, a blog, but how. You're going to put the full text of your outline on there and an infographic. Because you're creating multiple pieces of content, you want to be clear about the content type and where you're going to share it. Think strategically as you are putting together your channel plan. Make sure that you are addressing and sharing the proper audience. So for example, if you're sharing about a product or service that is pretty specific and that you feel like your full customer base may not be entirely interested in it, perhaps you want to send an email blast to a smaller segment of your customer base that already uses that product or service, or that has expressed an interest in that product or service. If you feel that a particular segment of your audience that would be interested in this topic is on Facebook, but not on LinkedIn, just share it on Facebook. Don't make extra work for yourself. Think strategically about where this information would be best used and conveyed. And again, don't forget to write it down. If you write it down, you're essentially creating a checklist for yourself about where and how you're going to share your content, and it will get done. If it's not written down, it'll get forgotten. And also make sure that you're considering production costs, if any, for this content development. Now, for some, you're writing a blog post. That's sweat equity, that's effort. That still costs, because there's effort involved in that and time. However, for other things like certain video production or graphic design, there will be a cost, sort of associated with that. So make sure that you keep that in mind so that you can keep things affordable and keep your marketing budget on par. So hopefully you're feeling ready to get going, getting ready to create some awesome content to share with your audience, and I've got a few tips to help you get started. First, listen to your customers. Some of the best ways to get started on creating content is listening to the people who you work for. In this case, your customers. Those are the folks that come in every day, they're transacting business with you, but they're maybe asking questions or sending you an email or calling you on the phone and asking you a question about your product or service or something pertaining to your industry. If you start to see a trend about these particular questions, you may want to consider creating a piece of content that you can share with your audience and all the different channels that we've discussed, because likely if you're hearing a trend, there are lots of other people that want to know about that information too. When others want to know about it, it's a pretty good idea that it's going to be a relatively shareable piece of content. If you're sharing information that some people want to know about, they're going to share it with others that they think would be interested as well. Second, capture your audience's attention. You want to write copy that really grabs them. When you are starting out with writing copy, use questions. Ask a question that you know they're going to say yes to, and that you're in their head and you're answering a question they've had in there that's been rolling around, and let them know you're going to give them an answer. Share a shocking statistic or something surprising, an exclamation that will capture their attention. Use bright colors and interesting fonts to really grab their eye. Make your visual content pop. You might also consider moving images like a slideshow or a video or a GIF image. Moving pictures are a fantastic format, especially in the social media sphere or on your website, to grab attention of your audience. Another tip, keep it simple. You've written out all this great information, and breaking your idea into smaller chapters or pieces is helpful for you. That simplifies your content creation process. If you're keeping your information relatively simple and leaving out a lot of technical detail, you're also keeping the concepts simple for your audience. Especially if it's something that might be a little confusing or intimidating, you want to keep it at a level that makes it palatable and approachable. If you get too technical, it might be a little intimidating or confusing, and your audience might shy away. If you're going to incorporate technical information, do so when they call you for more insights and information about your business, product, and services. What you'll do by keeping it simple is make this an easy choice for them. This guy is able, or this woman is able to simplify this problem that I have. They have an answer. I'm going to call them. When they call you, you can get a little bit more technical so that you can express your expertise, and they realize that they really are talking to somebody who knows exactly how to solve their problem. And it makes you a much better candidate for their business when you can sort of guide them from the problem acknowledgement phase and a simple solution to being able to showcase your expertise and your position as someone who can solve their problem with knowledge and credibility. You also want to be able to share your information often. You've spent so much time creating this content, creating all these different ways of conveying these ideas. Now share it. Sharing it once is great, but sharing it multiple times is even better, because if someone missed it once, they might see it the second, third, fourth, fifth time that you post it. As long as the information is still timely, it's called evergreen content, you can share it over and over and over again. You might update the information if there's new figures that came out over the course of a year, for example, but you've spent the time to create this information, share it. If you're interested, I do have a sort of a cheat sheet on different social media sharing schedules for different platforms so that you can utilize your content across channels more often than just once. And as my way of saying thank you for attending today's Blow Up Your Content webinar, I have a free offer to help you get started on your content development strategy. I would love to sit with you for 15 minutes and talk through your content creation and planning strategy. Sign up, shoot me an email. My email is at the bottom of your screen. I have a few appointments available over the next couple of weeks for this. But what we will do is sit down, talk through a piece of content, an idea that you would like to develop. We can talk through how you might be able to explode that content into multiple pieces. We can talk about where you're going to share that content. And then I can give you some pointers as to how often you might want to share it, when you might want to update it, all that kind of stuff. We will create a basic content development and distribution strategy that you can take with you and even use it as a framework for future content creation and sharing. We can get a lot done in 15 minutes. And I would love to sit down with you either on the phone or on a video conference call and help you get started on your content creation journey. If you like this webinar or you've seen previous webinars, you'll know that I keep these to 30 minutes, these web workshops. They're during lunch, so hopefully it's a convenient time for you to come and learn a little bit more about marketing. We have two coming up in the spring. We have one in April, on April 12th, where we will be discussing how to convert employees to brand ambassadors. This is a pretty common question I hear from my customers. They want to know, how can I engage my employees so that they are not just coming to work every day, but sharing how much they enjoy working here, how much they believe in the product or service that we create here, and across channels, digital and traditional. So that's from 12 to 12:30 on April 12th. And in May, we'll be actually approaching Twitter. We'll be discussing Twitter as a content sharing engine. We'll be discussing Twitter as a fantastic place to make connections for your business. And basically, we'll be discussing how Twitter can be beneficial to your business. It's often an intimidating topic for people, but we're hopefully going to simplify it for you a little bit so that you will feel more comfortable about giving Twitter a shot. If you would like to register for any of these web workshops or view previous webinars that we have hosted, feel free to go down to my MindShuffle channel link right here at the bottom of your screen, and you can register and view past webinars as well. So thank you again so much for attending today's web workshop, Blow Up Your Content. If you have questions, need additional information about how MindShuffle can help you develop content, or you're looking for some additional information about what we've talked about today so that you can create your own content, shoot me an email, give me a call, send me a message through my website. I look forward to speaking with you. Thank you so much again for attending, everyone, and have a great day.